Good afternoon to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here. I hope you're doing well, and just thought I'd kind of tune in a bit here today. And for those of you who are interested in maybe following through in the presentation today, I just thought it'd be kind of nice to go back and regroup a little bit here. And I want to, before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank all of you for being so patient and going through the last two exercises with me. The Porsche system, we did 2 phases of that, which is a very finished rendering series or cycle. The full color presentation piece. Rather large sketch, but a lot of little nuances in it that I thought were really kind of timely and so forth. And again, the second was an advanced Cadillac shooting brake, that Black Wing edition. So after going through both of those, I thought it was interesting, go through those processes in automotive design and so forth. And I want to be very careful here too. We're going to go through a series of sketches today, just in a portfolio presentation, just in ideation sketches. And I thought it was good today to go just pull back a little bit and say, you know what, we've gone through all these final renderings, and nice to have a media approach and all these multiple systems we're dealing with. But I think it's also very timely for me, especially, and hopefully it'll help you as well, to see how it all begins, how the ideation sketch should operate. What should it look like? What kind of content should we have? Is it one of those situations where all of a sudden you begin to see in terms of should be too much, too little? And I think it also motivated me to go to this direction today with just slowing it all down and going back into some ideation sketches, just a very fast, real quick little bullet sketches, was this. I think a lot of times when we go through the ideation cycle, or drawing an idea or putting a thought down on paper, we have a very difficult time putting it all together because we want to judge it ahead of schedule. It's already there, it's done, it's not very good, it's judgmental, gee, it's terrible, it didn't turn out right. And quite honestly, folks, I think that's totally fatal. What we should learn to do is this. Go through a series of sketches, put your ideas down, do not judge them. It's a moment in time. That's all that really is. And I think you have an idea, right? Stay with that idea. And I noticed too, and second point, let me go back, let me finish point number 1. The reason we get into that judgment system is because we're looking for perfection. Well, we can't be perfect with this process, but you can teach ourselves to lead ourselves unto perfection by perfecting the discipline. And what's the discipline? Learning how to draw. Put your thoughts down and don't judge it. Let that become a learning platform to say, okay, next time I want to refine this, and next one I'll refine this. And you keep adjusting as you go, and all of a sudden the results become much more rewarding. And I think that's number 1 reason for why I want to go back today and just go through basic sketches. And the second one is that we always have a tendency to want to change the whole world with our sketches. In other words, it's not grand enough, it's not big enough, it's not provosive enough, it's just not invasive enough. And I think those are the things that we get caught up in as well. So if we took very simple things, and we can let those simple things amplify our thoughts, that's a whole different set of circumstances to deal with. So again, I just want to set a preamble here today before we go into this little portfolio exhibition of just some very quick, rapid sketches, some thought studies I've done over the course of time. And some are recent and some are past, present, but I'll go through some of these things and show you what we're dealing with. But I think it's very important that all of us, for example, to take the time to kind of pull back a little bit, go back to the sketch cycle, the ideation cycle, what the thought process was, and let that thought process begin to generate certain ideas. So again, and while I'm at it too, coming up on Thursday, we're going to go through this process. I'm going to go back in and change some subject matter on Thursday. I'm going to try to open up a little bit, some interior space, some more architectural stuff, maybe some structural perspective materials. I want to change it up quite a bit all the time so it doesn't become an automotive pit, so to speak, or week after week after week, or session after session after session is all about cars. Yeah, that's fun to do, but I think there's so much more out there that hopefully that you all have an interest in. And while I'm on that subject as well, if you have something that you're dealing with or you have a difficulty kind of working through, certainly not to insult you in any way, shape, or form, but to help you, drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com and put down your thoughts. I'd like to see you do the following. Could you help me out with this or that? So that's available as well. So let's kind of get this journey started here. And I'm going to begin with this is pardon me, this is something I'm working on recently here. I had a conversation with my shadow guy, my wingman, a couple of days ago about this new bomber system that I guess that Star Citizen is doing. It's really dramatic. It's a very simple form and just powerful as all get out. And I thought, that'd be kind of a fun process to look at, and maybe take some a little bit of liberty to kind of go back in and redesign, or else facelift, or else play off of that format. I hate the term play off, but to begin to extrapolate what those forms might be looking at. So what I was intrigued by with that vehicle was it was a very simple isosceles triangle. So if you notice, a very simple base structure here, and it's a line study, and then looking at the plan view of what might happen to these forms. And what's interesting about the whole design process, from my point of view, I think we could teach ourselves that when you get into systems that are very complicated and extremely overwhelming, Always think in terms of simplicity. That's why the 5 geometric basic solids are so powerful, because everything we work with is dealt off of that, and they build off of those solids. So what I loved about this concept, not this one, but what they did at Star Citizen, they took a very simple form of an isosceles triangle, began to break it up and go to positive negative shape. So this is where I started here, and I'll go back to this. I'll come back to this later on at the end of the program and show you what the next generation might be. I'm looking forward to maybe putting a nice series together on this, going from maybe a sketch into some thumbnail studies, variations on theme, then going back into a nice final maybe black and white or a full color presentation piece that you can kind of see with the process how it all begins to open up. But again, the purpose of today's stream is simply this: go back to basic thinking, get the idea sketches down, look at the variety of things you can deal with, learn from those mistakes that we make that are not mistakes and miracles waiting to happen, and we go from there. So this is kind of a phase 1 opener here. Currently working on some things in addition to some other things, but this is one of them. Now I'm going to switch gears here, and then just some little line studies. This is going into some real fast, rapid sketches here for the 4-rotor Corvette. This is a black and white line study, exterior and interior. This is the one that was sent to the Paris Auto Show back in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was really the forerunner of the 4-rotor Corvette, or pardon me, the C8 system today. This car set the tone for that machine in terms of what we see on the road today. Started right here. I was a chief designer in that program at that design staff, and what you'll see here following is a series of thumbnail sketches. Once that car was done, we went right back in and did some really quick little vignette sketches, such as this family. These are newsprint studies, very quickly done. Overhead 3/4 rear, notice ballpoint pen, very lucid, very quick. But again, the idea, get the thought down. What are the character we're after? What kind of things are we looking at for the next generation of this, in this case, the C platform? Elevation study, and a little bit of overhead perspective. Now, let's turn the page, same thing again. Just getting into some very simple things in terms of overhead perspectives. This got a little bit, notice we tried to pick up some of the C6 platform coming in down the line from that. This eventually hit the road in the C6 platform, but that little fender detail became very critical in terms of putting together the project for C6. But again, notice how the sketches are very quick and lucid, not a lot of detail involved, just getting some cut lines down and elements of interest to put the program together. Facing page here, same thing, a little bit of elevation study here, and then going back up and doing a little bit of front 3/4. Notice, start to see some of the nacelle work that came up in the C7, for example. Again, thumbnail sketch, idea, what does it look like? What's the blush look like? And then what are we looking at as far as overall character? Again, ideation sketches, just looking at thoughts, developing ideas. Now we turn the page here. Again, a little 1-point study on the same process. Again, extremely dramatic. This could be either glass or a body side graphic, and with a little bit with a peek through it in terms of being transparent. And the rest is a la McLaren, for example, today. A very interesting concept in terms of putting that together. So again, a little thumbnail sketch on that. Notice a lot of detail in some areas, a lot of very lucid sketch in the other. And again, switching gears here, front 3/4, a little bit of this intake. Since I'm looking at some hood graphics, what do we want to do with some of the character of that? Is it worthwhile to go back in and kind of punch into it and put a little more relief into it? Notice that the hip change here, that plan form comes in and steps back out again. Again, that was a lot of variation in theme. We couldn't get that much offset in the C7 series, but we got it to kind of move out a little bit in plan view to give it some interest. So that was that study. And moving around again, notice a little bit of that C6 coming back in again. A little bit of the 7 coming back into it again, to just elongated the intake, so to speak, to get that all squared away. And again, really fast sketches, real simple backgrounds, little ballpoint pen sketches, just extremely fast sketches to get the gestures down. This was always intriguing to me, kind of a nice rear 3/4. We never got that character back in the 3/4 rear on the new 7 and 8, but that round system, we were very much entrapped at that time with Ferrari, and now again get that tail section to work the same way. Again, a very dramatic upper, little nice elevation study or a 1-point perspective, very simple little intake series up on top. But again, this whole generation had a lot to do with just, okay, we've got that C7 or the Paris 4-rotor Corvette out there in the marketplace. How do we begin to move that into the paradigm of product development from the C5, 6, 7, 8 into the generation? So little bits and pieces along the way came from that initial vehicle into the current C8 today. So here we are again, last little series of studies, much more dramatic glass system. Much a very different profile, breaking into it very severely. And again, notice that little shoot here. All of a sudden, some of the 7 series started coming into play here with this. It wasn't as dramatic, but we started looking at that as a go. And again, here's a little ballpoint pen sketch of the 7 series up on top and the C6 below. Notice again that same little character came into it. So long ago, for example, This vehicle, for example, the C6, all the planning on that platform was done back 6 years or 5 to 6 years before it hit the road in Advent. Same with the C7 as well. Notice same kind of wide mouth grille, full open proportion, and a lot of real low stands, very wide body form, very low in terms of overall height. And look at the proportion change there. So all these little things along the way, really learning how to put together, and I'm still learning how to put together an idea, but I don't pause or don't I hesitate. I never hesitate when I put down a thought, or I just sketch and go. Pardon me, I do not judge. I lay it down there. If it's positive, I look at it. If it's negative, I kind of build on it. I kind of refine it and keep going with it, and not to destroy the ideation behind it also. Now let's move into this. Now you see some of the final sketches, not final sketches, some of the thumbnail studies for the C6, which is in this 3/4 rear, and then the C7. Notice again that wide grille, wider stance, very aggressive body side piece. Notice that aspect, the intake piece here, came up as a result of this guy right here. This was done well in advance of that whole concept coming into play right here, which is an E8. So let's move along here, and then the next set is a little theme sketch here due to the Zora Arcos Duntov XP series. This actually was done back in the 50s, and I just picked up a Prismacolor pencil, Tuscan red, and just started doing some sketch work on top of that. Just laying down again, the drill here for me was, the understanding was to just get really sensitive with shape. How do I develop that really round, voluptuous fender form without overkilling it, and then just getting the shadow side down, and again, and the reflection across the top of the hood surface, and just putting a little bit of textural background, laying on a real high shadow. And while I'm at it too, I think it's interesting if those of you out there, for example, if you should look at this stream and have some questions about the process, always remember one of the most critical elements in putting together ideation sketches, no matter what your subject matter is. I don't know if it's figure work or it's architecture, interior space, automobile. There's one common theme that should always be really honored and brought up to the foreground, and it's simply this: darkest darks next to lightest lights. I mean, look at the number of situations where you have darkest darks next to lightest lights, next to darkest darks next to lightest lights. And again, into the whole, you can follow the pattern all the way through: dark to the light, to medium to light, back to dark, back to light, back to dark, back to dark, back to light, back to dark. I mean, that whole pattern comes through. And the reason I bring that up from an ideation perspective and a concept perspective is simply this: that when you go through a process of putting an idea down, to me, contrast produces confidence. The bolder the contrast is, the more confident you are in telegraphing your thoughts and projecting your ideas. Without contrast, everything kind of flattens out, and we get, ever done a sketch where it all kind of ends up like a number C gray, number 5 gray, and just kind of tones out and there's no punch to it? And that's why. We're not taking advantage of the light source. We're not taking advantage of the old idea of line and the whole concept of darkest darks next to lightest lights all the way through the process. And you can validate that too if you choose to. Big history, I am a big history buff of art history and design, and especially the Renaissance. A guy named Michelangelo and also another one named Rembrandt did a phenomenal job with contrapposto and light source, and contrapposto with Michelangelo and light source with Rembrandt. I mean, he's a master of light. You look at his fine artwork and it's just stunning in terms of darks against lights. And that was his treatise. So, moving along here, from that little forte in this Duntop machine, I'm over here to some interior concept sketches. Notice, really opening it all up and just letting all the line work come together here with the idea. I put together this little commodious interior space study. So there's one. Move over here and another little variation on the theme and how that all comes together. And what we're doing to get that put together, very asymmetrical stance. But again, notice how the whole shape opens up. While I'm at it too, and I think one of the things that's interesting about ideation studies is that we have a tendency here, and I think it's extremely powerful to do so, and I think that should be part of the match as well. Every time we go through a sketch, we should really exaggerate certain things, not to distort them, but to give more drama to it, more personality to it, to kind of sell the idea. If you flatten it all out, if you held this, for example, if this inside design line, this door trim line was over here, you'd trap off half the interior. So we open it up to kind of show the idea of what this expanse is doing in the interior of the vehicle itself. So these are some little elevation studies that we put together for the again, that bomber I was referring to earlier. Just some really fast, quick elevation sketches. But what does that look like? What does this thing look like? For example, this guy right here. what does that begin to look like if I look at it not only in the plan view, but in the elevation? A little bulky in this area here, but some things happening in the cockpit area. That's kind of nice, that overhead, that intake scoop. A little slimmer as we go through here. Getting a profile down really nice and thin, so it's almost a very stealth-like angular system, but the plan view is a real fooler, because the plan view is, again, that equilateral triangle, which is extremely dramatic to work with. So back and forth I go here from sketch to sketch. But again, if I were to put one thing in context here for us today, by going back and reviewing some sketch ideation work as opposed to doing illustration sketches and the like we've done the last 2 or 3 streams, it's simply this. In an idea sketch or a concept study, be very lucid with it. Just lay down your thoughts and do not judge them. That's the most fatal thing you can do in terms of putting it all together. So again, the lesson here today, the reason for pulling back on the sketchbook, is to show you a variety of little thumbnail sketches and technique approaches that give you ideation studies without the expense of being so final that they become fatal. I've always said that too. Final becomes fatal. We try to treat everything as a final sketch as opposed to a journey. That's what this whole presentation is for today. So let's go back in reverse here. Some little Prismacolor pencil sketches of some advanced thinking for Chevrolet motor car. Again, a little bit of autonomy in some cases, but again, notice a very quick gesture, very much of a spear type, picking up that same overall Chevrolet. If you look at the A body series, there's a little bit of that little sway line in the A series. We're picking up a little bit of that. And again, the plan view is very bold, and the rear 3/4 extremely bold. So real fast pencil sketches. No, it's the same characters there. There's not a lot of finish work here. Not a lot of it's filled in. There's a lot of paper being exposed, a lot of not being filled in to kind of create the mystery of what's happening next, what's going to come here as a result of developing this sketch. So let's move along here. These are a series of sketches done some time ago for a Honda motor car off-road sports system, where I was contracted to come in and do a whole series of off-road vehicles. These are really fast little ballpoint pen sketches that we kind of cranked out at staff, and it's also my office here in Columbus. But just laying down ideas and elevations, turning a little bit into perspective, and getting more character down, getting a lot of the same kind of off-road character that they were after. They gave us some pretty good specific ground rules in terms of what the overall character should look like, but they never dictated it should have a certain look about them. At this stage of the game, Honda's Power Sports program was looking for a whole new platform, because everything else out in the marketplace, for example, were very common. For example, Yamaha, all the other manufacturers, off-road systems began to pick up the same cookie cutter approach. There was nothing distinctive. So Honda wanted a combination of skins, molded skins, and bare metals, and almost like tubing structure to kind of get this whole thing put together. So it gives a little bit of license in terms of what the character should look like. But again, I want you to notice not a lot of detail in these sketches. I'm just picking up some detail areas, and maybe a front-end graphic, and let the rest kind of go. Some header systems, what's happening on the upper. Again, same with this. Is it a soft canvas back? Is that transparent? We don't know. That's the idea. That's a generation of that's the beauty of developing a generational sketch. That you generate the idea and you lay something down, and then working with management or people who are involved in the process, what's really neat about that is they can come back and say, is this transparent? Yeah, it could be. It could be canvas. It could be a color accent. It could be a different could be a rollback canopy type. That's what opens up the idea of having a very lucid sketch, which invites a lot of conversation. Which is, again, why I felt today was to kind of pull back from illustration work and just go back into just basic thinking in terms of how does it begin to generate itself? What's the impact of the sketch? What's the intent? What's our message that we're trying to send? So let's move along here. In addition to some of the exterior work, we did some interior stuff, like some of the seating systems. Again, notice, look how very quick and simple they are. Just getting contours down. A little bit of background there to kind of bounce them off the page. Again, that's just as powerful as the actual sketch itself, because it sets the stage for page composition, which I think is really critical in terms of putting together an idea sketch. You can have a whole bunch of sketches all over the place, but if there's not a real lattice of format in terms of we started here, went to this one, notice here to that. Everything changed as I went from a very molded seat to a combination of molded and soft rim. And this is almost like a sling. It's all canvas, are all very easily put together in the machine, for example, for cleanability, removability, and all the things we're dealing with. And then that plus in the instrument panel, very bare bones, cup holders, center console, much more of a wedge-like kind of coming right back at you, some floating instrumentation up on the platform itself. Again, really quick little sketches. These are some studies here, again, back to Corvette. Some of the things that were done. Notice now we're starting to move into the 7 series and 8 series. Picking up that little intake piece, for example, on the body side. Now, what does it look like from the rear 3/4? We want to go back and be much more Lamborghini-like. Not that that's the format we're after, but it does have that kind of character to it. And then secondly, look what happens here. Now let's go back and get this guy lined up here if I can slide that in there. Here's a series of just ballpoint pen sketches on what's happening with this whole idea of elevation. Notice a lot of 7 involved in this guy, then into an 8, then back to 8, and then again to 8. Notice how the genealogy begins to change a little bit as we go through the process here, as a result of coming in and beginning to put together a platform that has some substance to it. Again, generating an idea. When you generate an idea, you keep it in motion, you move it, you adjust it as you go, and not get fall in love with your work. And then maybe that's a good point too. Let me stop here for a moment. I got to entertain a thought. Maybe for future streaming systems too, I might go ahead and just take different subject matter like interior space, seating, transportation, product design, architecture, and do a series of whatever for what might look like some thumbnail sketches or ideation sketches. If that would be an asset to you, be helpful, let me know, and I'll begin to just tune in some of those programs, because I'm trying to author certain things down and change the tempo quite a bit from one stream to another so it doesn't become consistent. So that's something I think I might take a good look at and put some notes on. So on we go here. Next page. Let's go back to this. Some little line studies here, and again, notice a lot more fluid in terms of getting that 8 series in, getting the vacuole on the body side to work with. Some of the front end character, notice some of the little skirt systems involved in the thing. All of a sudden, it started to all come together for us. Little pencil sketches, and that's the intent right there. So we can turn the page here, switching gears into some little aircraft or some drone studies. A couple of little concept sketches on drones. Let me just turn it out a little bit right there. And how it begins to play. Again, notice very simple sketches, a little bit of background to indicate sky, plan view and a little perspective sketch. But again, not a lot of mystery there, just real fast, rapid sketches, overhead, 3/4, and a plan view, or pardon me, elevation study at rest. So these are done for the United States military, kind of a lot of fun working with Rockwell here in town, and Mettler-Toledo as well in some areas did some of this development work for these drone systems. Wright Patterson was involved in this process as well. So here we go. Now, this is a fun little system here. This really came about as a result of some of the present CTR machines from Cadillac on the road today. These are some very, very future advanced programming work done for Cadillac. And these are real rough little newsprint sketches. But Cadillac at the time was looking for, what do we do in terms of language and then maybe the next 5 to 10 years? What are the benchmarks look like? How do we take what we have currently and stretch it into something we can utilize as a show machine or a concept car? Then utilize that to come right back in and use some of those little features. For example, do we want this kind of an offset in the body form? Do we want a real bold rear pant form that covers the rear wheels? Those are the kind of things that begin ideation sketches begin to develop. Notice again, this elevation of this perspective sketch, very, very sharp, almost angular looking. Some of the work that they're doing now and in the rear 3/4 area for the CTS series. And look at this plan view, really, really bold, almost like a little nacelle in the middle of the whole form, and then all of a sudden the wings come out of that and develop the body form. These are real fast little pencil sketches, a little more elaboration. Notice down below here, taking some of the sketches and putting some section into it. And we're not saying that, please, I'm going to be very clear, we're not saying that this was done for production, so to speak, but often in the studios, we take a platform like Corvette or Chevrolet or Cadillac or Buick, and we take that current language and stretch it into the next 10 to 15 years and say, what are we doing in the next 10 to 15 years? It still has a bit of a benchmark, still has the identity of a Cadillac or whatever it might be, and then, but it has a newness about it. So that's why these sketches are done, to kind of look at a fresh sheet of paper and begin, let's say in 2022, what are we looking at 2030? What happens then? Do we want more bold graphics? Do we want body color changes? Do we want spears and intakes in certain areas that become interest? Do we change the overall stance of the machine? Now, we're not going to get that kind of upper, but maybe that body form with a sedan or a coupe upper on it could be really dramatic. So those are the things we're looking at as we go through these processes today. Again, very bold. And notice, look at the runners inside this thing. This comes down and begins to form like a dihedral to kind of draw air underneath the machine and begin to push it through as a new aspect. Let's go back again. Little marker sketches here. Some Corvette. This was done for Chevrolet. Some Chevrolet studies, for example, generational work. Just elevations, fast ballpoint, a little bit of marker, ballpoint pen. Again, back to some Corvette work into the C8 series. Let's kind of drop those down a little bit so you can see what they're doing. And again, really, I can't stress, and I've said it a million times, so forgive me for being redundant here, but these studies should not take any more than 3 to 4 minutes just to kind of crank them through. The more you begin to think about it, and the more you dwell on the sketch itself, gee, is this all right? Is this going to be okay? Should I do this? Should I do that? All of a sudden, it creates doubt. And I think when I'm at it here, let me just interject this thought. In the creative process, never doubt your beliefs. Doubt your doubts. Let me say that again. I think this is why I put this program on today, because I really want to get rid of the myth of being doubtful. Never doubt your beliefs. If you have a strong belief and you see certain things going a certain way, you have a certain personality about your sketches, and you have a format in which it's working for you, do not doubt that. Doubt your doubts. Eliminate doubt altogether. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, going back to this very simple portfolio to work with, because I want us to really, hey, how you doing there, Captain Nemo? How you doing? It's good to have you on board. Man, long time no hear. How you doing? Let me stop there for a moment. Boy, it's a real joy to have you on board, Captain Nemo. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going through some portfolio stuff for today. Really interesting how it all comes together in terms of ideation sketches. For the last few, I don't know if you've caught the last 2 or 3 streams, Captain Nemo, but I went into some very elaborate, yeah, I can imagine you're very busy this year. Boy, I know the feeling, but just to bring up the speed, I went back into this little simple portfolio study here today, because the last 3 streams were very elaborate. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but one was on a Porsche series, the 911 Targa, then there's some LMP cars, then we did a Cadillac shooting brake the last go around, very formal rendering. So I thought I'd come back today and go through some of the processing in terms of what an ideation sketch is. And the purpose of today's stream was to really hopefully hammer home the importance of being very lucid in your sketches. How does an idea become developed? What do you do with an idea? How far do you take an idea? What's in it? What do you leave out of it? So that's what we're going through today. And if you need me to, I'll go back through some portfolio stuff here if you want me to review some things here, Nemo. But boy, it's really great to have you back on board. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the subscription. Miss seeing you here from day to day, week to week, but I'm glad you're on board. So again, back to these are real fast little gestures. What ifs? I always like to think just kind of bursts into an idea. What do they look like? What's the character of it? Do we want a high hip? Do we want to be a little slimmer? Almost like a fastback, almost like a shooting brake camback series. Do we want to go back and look at the razor in this guy? Do we take that intake piece and really develop a real strong catwalk into that rear 3/4? Idea, idea, idea. Let's turn the page here. Again, same thing again. These are done for Chevrolet, so I'm very quick jumping back and forth here. Just again, look at the spring line on this thing, almost Maybach-like. They're very long tailored pieces, and getting into some of the advanced B car and A car series. Again, just looking at graphics and stance. This is a real quick little ballpoint pen sketch I did for the C8 Corvette. That's a C8R series. Real lucid ballpoint sketch. Notice a lot of rambling through it, a lot of scratching at it, and just putting down the character of the sketch. And again, that's why we're looking at this portfolio today. It's the idea behind the idea. What's the mind thinking about? What do you want to emphasize? How do you begin to move through a surface or change shape or tempo in a drawing? All these things begin momentum, and they build momentum into what you begin to see, and your confidence builds as a result of that. So let's kind of turn the page. Again, another little front 3/4 piece here of the same machine. Some little different lamping graphics, but again, notice really ratty, scratchy kind of ballpoint pen sketch, which I think is really critical, because out of this, what you're doing is almost twofold. Number one, you're getting the perspective stance correct, and number two, you're looking at high contrast areas. Where are the darks and lights? Where do you want to emphasize? Glass graphics, lamping systems, intakes, and lighting systems. All that becomes part of the mix. And I don't believe, and I think I can say this without any reservation, we're not conscious of it. It just comes about automatically, because you begin to see the form developing, and you take chances and push certain things, and you leave some things alone. And sometimes it'll work magically, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's not the point. The point is to get into a rhythm of not being judgmental. A. B. Be explosive. B. Be explosive. C. Be committed. And then last of all, D. Be determined. Be determined to kind of pull through it all and learn from the mistakes or the so-called elements you're dealing with. And I think that's the whole idea for this whole portfolio today. And as a result of that portfolio today, maybe on Thursday, we'll kind of switch gears and show you how a process from A to B to C and D works. So these are little cycles. This is done together for a local company here in town. They want to look at an EV program, electronic bike, and I put together a little bit of line study here for it. And I have not had the approval yet to show some of the sketches and final material and graphics and how we put this whole piece together. But again, notice, very simple black and white sketch, just line weight, high contrast areas, idea, idea, idea. Now turn the page here a little bit. Go back in. This little platform study brought into on a consulting piece for a firm here in town that was going to do a lightweight vehicle. So I helped them kind of put together like a little body armature of an overhead strap seating system, steering apparatus, and then just a three-wheel vehicle. And off of this shape, we developed some forms around it. And again, this is another one of those situations where I couldn't show any sketches from the final program because they're still under license. But once that's released, I'll maybe bring that back and show you how that little three-wheeler worked. I've got some sketches of it on my computer and also on my vocabulary profile in my office, but I can't show them yet. But this is the beginning of the whole architecture. Little quick pencil sketch of an aircraft study. Again, just a little overhead 1-point perspective. Fast idea blush here. Let's turn the page. These are kind of fun. I mean, again, looking at concepts, some sketches on, again, drone studies, front elevations, a little bit of perspective study, a little bit of overview, and then again, at rest. What do these things begin to look like? They're almost B-2 bomber-like, but not quite nearly as cool. But again, the idea behind these sketches, explore. What does it take to get there? How much information do you need? What's the idea? Sometimes with 2 or 3 lines, we can communicate an awful lot of information. And I'll show you in some cases how that begins to apply, especially in the aspect of working with empathic sketches. Empathy is beautiful because that gets it down to minimum thinking. Then you begin to develop over the top of that what these shapes are doing. So these are very empathic in a sense. They're very emotional. They're very quick and they're very burst-like. And then all of a sudden you begin to develop out of that. These are little thumbnail sketches. The ballpoint pen of just, again, the reason for putting these together, I had a young person come to me and ask questions about how to develop an interior space. And what he was doing was, he or she, they were putting these sketches were real tight and confined. What they were not doing is open up the environment, open up the cabin so it kind of spreads out a little bit, and cheating the space so you kind of see a little bit more of the interior with just enough information where the cross member is for the graphics and some seating the system. In here, a little bit of seating and then where the location of the steering wheel is. And again, same thing here, just getting the armature down. Notice how that opens up very dramatically. It just opens right up and just takes you into the cockpit or the confined area of the trim itself. So there it is there. That was a first pass at it. Now we do a couple more here. Now notice how this really opens up. Look how we've just taken that space and just opened it right up. Seating in position, a little bit of door graphics, and again, a little bit of a very simple IP system. You kind of notice not a lot of fuss there. And I think that's one of the nice things about putting it, again, sketches can tell a great story. And I'll say this, it might be a bit of a contradiction in terms, but please, I hope it does not take in that way. Sometimes the simplicity can be explosive. And we want to be explosive, but we lose simplicity. If we reverse that process, one complements the other. The essence of it all is to get the idea down and begin to transfer it. No, not so much open here. I was more concentrating on getting this armature, the tunnel console coming in, the OIP, little bridge system for graphics, maybe a readout on top, AC systems, information center up on top here. Again, just, yeah, as you go through these sketches, I think, I don't know if I mentioned this at all, but I think it's at this stage of the game, very timely to indicate that it should be stated. As you go through these sketches, yes, you are thinking of details. You are thinking about character, color, texture, overall shape, and personality. But you're not conscious of it. You're not trying to be so precise and so frozen with it that if it doesn't work right, gee, I failed. They're all there, but you're just kind of letting it all freewheel into an aspect of the sketch itself. And let the sketch guide you. That's another great thing about the concept sketch of just ideation sketches. They help guide us. Put an idea down, oh, that wasn't quite right. But how about this idea? What about that idea? It just opens things up and it teaches us number one lesson in being creative. Be fluid. Do not, I've said this before, and I hope I'm not going to offend anybody by making this comment. I've always said this, and I really believe it with all my heart. Never fall in love with your work. It leads to a quick divorce. This stuff should change all the time. And that way you begin to know which is powerful, which is helpful, which to eliminate, and which to accentuate. Let's go down the line here. We'll move along. These little interior sketches. Let's see, the next one over here. Back to some little ballpoint pen sketches. Back to some Corvette work. Some advanced Corvette here. Playing off on some of the European influence. And little front and rear elevation studies here. More rear elevation studies by just getting and notice a very simple shape, working up with a very circular perspective, then building off of that, the wheel plant, the elements of exhaust and intakes, same thing down below. Every one of these guys, all built with one simple circle and perspective, how it all begin to function. Again, let's go back to this guy, elevation studies again. Notice that one slope line, one slope line. Just breaking it up a little bit, breaking it up with an intake, cross-reference. A little bit of a diamond form in here. That shape comes in, steps back out again. Again, you're thinking about those things as you go through the process, but you're not being conscious of it, and you're not trying to be so, you're not dictating it. The creative process is dictating to you which step to take. So that's last but not least, again, some other little ballpoint pen sketches on how it all came together here. And again, some little Corvette stuff here. I mean, some very elaborate looking shooting brake series, more in flavor here with what we're looking for in some of the 8 series and some of the 9s and 10s coming down the road. But again, the idea, just really interesting how an ideation sketch can become really, really powerful if properly utilized. That's the end of the portfolio here as far as just going. I don't want to really belabor the fact with a lot of time spent here, but just to walk you through everything from interior space to architecture, spacecraft work, and then into ideas and so forth. I find it hard to find the point at which I should abandon an idea after the purpose is visible. At which point is stopping and starting over the better choice instead of going more into. That's a great question, Captain Nemo. I think the good advice there is when you go through a quick burst like that. Let's read this. Okay, I find it hard to find the point at which I should abandon an idea. Okay, so once you have an idea down, then after the purpose is visible, what are you after? That's point number 2. The critical one is at which point is stopping and starting over and better choice. I think you don't stop. Or you start over. You go back. You finish that sketch, then you start all over again with the same. Maybe it's the same theme or thread line that's in it, but you build off of that. A good example was this guy right here. A good example, a bad example. It's the same slope line, same slope line, same slope line, but breaking it up graphically was a variation on theme. So I started with that one simple slope line, and I didn't want to abandon it. Went to number 2, added more detail to it. And then the choice was to go back in and not to start over again, but just keep refining that simple form from step 1 to 2 and to 3. Let me stop right there. Does that help to answer your question, Captain Nemo? Am I out of order there? Maybe I'll just stop for a moment, wait for your response. And while I'm waiting, let me kind of reinforce what I just stated too. I think when you have an idea such as that, that point of no return should never be arrived at. I think you finish that sketch, look at it from an evaluation point of view, and then build off of what you've already started in the structure. So hold on here, wait for his response. What do you think, Captain Nemo? Oh, half-finished cockpit interiors. Oh, these guys? These the one you're referring to? I gotcha. So these are like these guys. Is that correct? That family right there? Yeah, okay. At that point, what I did here, I'm sorry, thank you for clarifying that, Nemo. I just want to get a blush of overall environment, windscreen, side glass, and the body form, and a little bit of interior flavor. Once I had that arrived at, I stopped and moved on to the next one. I did not want to go back and embellish more of this. I wanted to add, for example, if I added the second seat, it would obliterate the steering column and so forth. So I was very selective about what I wanted to accomplish here. And at that point, once I got it accomplished, I started all over again and just going in, and no more detail was needed. I got the intent down. And then I moved on to the next step. And let's go back to this page here. I got the intent down, move on to the next step. And I think the real danger with that process sometimes, Nemo, is this. We get caught up with the fact that, I need to go back to this sketch. I need to put more detail in here. I may add more seating and so forth. And then the next thing you know, we start to lose the essence of the concept or the heartbeat of the idea. Now, does that help to clarify a little bit better? There's a moment of silence here. You'll get a response here. That's a great question, Nemo. Really well done. Very cool. And while I'm at it, while I'm waiting for the sponsor, I go back to the study again. Nemo, let's use these studies again. Since they're not quite complete and done yet. What I do, that helps your your case. Yeah, I think it was marketing. I think it's like marketing text if you know. Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't get the whole point across, and that's an essence too. But while I was waiting for your sponsor, Nemo, another good aspect of why you're doing this is if I go through a series of sketches like this, very quick, simple blushes, just minimal detail. Quick, simple blushes, minimal detail. I can combine or assemble all these sketches together and pick the best of the best, and then go back into a final piece, for example. Let's go back to something like this. Find it here. I can take some of those sketches, and if I can find this grouping here, Yeah, this is not quite the same finish, but from that generation to something like that begins to tell me, all right, that's a character I'm after. I can take it from this level to that level very quickly and get things done. It's a little more expressive, it's a little more complete, but I've gone through some elements here. There's another couple in here too that might be helpful. Yes, that's another good example. I can take sketches like this, for example, and I started here, very essential. Get some basic themes. I mean, maybe I like that pod surface up on top here, so I'll inject it into a sketch like this, where I go a little further with it, show the tone environment, put a little more color and tone into it, and then go in step by step by step. Now, does that help to kind of clarify things a little bit better for you there, Nemo? Good? But I like your analogy about that. It's very much like language. The more you overkill the verbal side of it, the more you begin to really look at the point of view of, oh, gee, I've said too much. It needs to be minimal. Again, minimize. Let's put it this way, minimize to maximize. Once you see what you're after, you can now begin to develop an icon or a series of studies that really kind of bring you back into the forefront of developing some really neat ideas. Going a little further, notice cockpit's complete, the exhaust system here, pardon me, the steering system here, and what's missing is the steering wheel, that's part of the digital information area, AC system up on top, seating, tunnel console. That is a result of putting all those pieces together. So that's where we are at this stage of the game. Yeah, thanks very much, Demo. It's a great question. But I think that's always good, for example, no matter what project I'm working on, I'll be very, very, very candid with you here. I do not do sketches, for example. In some cases, if the format and the ground rules are clear, I'll go all the way through it and get it done. But most cases, what I get is just basic shells of information. So I'm not too committed in the very first series of passes. I don't commit myself. I commit myself to studies like this, no matter what the project is: architecture, interior space, automobile, trim, interior, anything. I'm not really conclusive. I just really go through a whole lot of what ifs and just generate simple, very quick ideas. And I lay them out there. Next phase, go back and pick the best of the best and go from that phase into the phase I just referred to in second sketches, and then begin to clarify, and then just think of it like a large funnel, a lot of airspace. You expand and then contract. Expand and then contract and bring it all together, which again is a really great, to me, aspect of this whole concept of what it takes to get a good series of ideation sketches down. You're expanding the horizon line, you're bringing it back into focus. Then you, again, diversify and then specify. Very interesting. To me, that's the essence of the creative process. It's never really rested on one idea. It always generates one on top of the other. So all set there, Nemo, good? So all that to say, I just kind of, let me put this aside for a moment here. I just thought I'd go back to, let's go back to this first page here. I started this little series of sketches, and I'll show you right here. So just some plan view sketches about the next generation of something I'd like to just really kind of maybe move into a bomber system of some sort. But again, the reason I started with this is a very simple forward triangle. Just a very 3 lines, that's it. How you break those forms up, for example, is extremely intriguing. So down the line here, I'm going to take this whole concept and moving into another series of sketches for like Star Citizen, making another vehicle out of this thing and start to look at what might take place in terms of the next generation of maybe a big B-2-like bomber, but much more polar triangle-like or isosceles triangle-like. So I started there, and I just went through and did some of these guys. Let's get this out of the way. These are just very quick little sketches. So see if we can kind of get this into place here. Move it over just enough. There we go. Get those guys into play. So that was it in terms of putting together. Let's see if I can adjust the camera. Any better? There we are. That was just a series of. I started with these, for example. There we are. And I went back and with a pencil and said, "Oh, well, what do I take that same shape?" And again, notice again, very polar triangle, like again A, B, C. Begin to break it up just a bit. Then into an elevation. Is that what I want that thing to look like? I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet. Does that elevation look like that? Do I want to play up this intake much more powerfully? A little bit heavy here. Does it get thinner? And do I bring that up? Does that become much more of almost like a stealth fractured series of things to work with? Same with this guy. Notice same polar triangle. Broke it up again. Different engine nacelles instead of being forward. Reversed, I pulled them all forward. Same with this guy, a little thumbnail sketch here, kind of got, maybe the wings float a little bit, maybe they articulate, so forth. And the rationale behind this little study here was very simple. These accordion type process, it gave us the ability to kind of, almost like a swing wing, where that portion of the wing right here kind of moves up or down, depending on the aerodynamic system. So I'm just trying to put together a little story here, time to come here with this whole concept of getting into the idea of developing an idea and taking it into from sketch to finesse into final. So that concludes it here for the day, gang. I just really appreciate the fact that you hung on here. And again, Captain Nemo, you've made my day. It's just great to see you back on board again. And I'm so pleased you're doing well. And you have to fill me in on what you're working on and all the neat stuff you're involved in. And I'll do the same at this end. And I'm really looking forward to the next generation of maybe on Thursday. We'll take a look at going back into maybe a little bit of maybe a sketch rendering process that kind of works for us here and kind of put that all together. And maybe we'll build off of this process here today and pick a subject matter and just take you through the whole, walk you through the process. I'm also, for what it's worth, just a quick announcement, I've already finished a composition study of a squadron of B-2 bombers, kind of an overhead perspective. So I might start maybe laying in that little thing too. So I've got a whole lot of list of things to work with here. And I bring that up again because I would state this at the end of the streams. I think it's so important that people like yourself, Nemo, and others who are tuning in, if you have certain things you want to work with or want me to see or do or help you with, feel free, please, to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. I'd be happy to look at some things and maybe put together a program we can deal with it and help you through the process that you're working with, or I don't want to use the word struggling, but debating with. And again, that's really helpful to me. So I am in the process as a result of the last two streams with the Porsche, the P1, P2, phase 1 and 2 series, and then the new Cadillac piece. I thought, again, pull back a little bit. Let's see some sketch work here. And let's go back in again and revitalize the subject matter. And again, I'm going to really do an excellent job in the next few weeks here to kind of vary the themes of it: product architecture, exterior architecture, interior, and some landscape architecture. I'm going to move it around and really hope that that becomes an asset for those of you who are tuned in. So, Nemo, I just hope your family's well. And again, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join in. I know you're very busy, different time zone altogether, but it's great to have you on board. And believe me, I greatly respect your input and love the fact that you're part of the audience here. It's just great to have you on board. So all that to say, gang, that please visit my website at drcontrast.com. I think you'll find some really neat stuff there as far as basics. Yeah, the time zones, I can understand why. You're 5 hours ahead of us. Right now you're looking at what, 7 o'clock in the evening, 7:15, or they're about 8 o'clock. So thank you again, Nemo. But take a moment, take a look at my website at drcontrast.com. There's some drawing programs there that might be of interest to you. And on that, you'll see my whole setup in terms of Instagram. My Twitch series is up there. And when I'm done with this load today, I upload it onto YouTube. That'll be part of the process as well. So it's all there. Yeah, 9 o'clock. Oh, my goodness, almost 9 o'clock. So once again, man, if I were there, I'd buy you a great big steak dinner. So thanks again for tuning in, Captain Nemo. Don't be a stranger. And if you have the time to look into it, and if you miss a few, feel free to go back and look at them at your leisure. I think I might ask you, if you have a moment in the next few days, take a look at the last two streams, the Porsche 911 Targa and the LMP car, and also the Cadillac shooting brake. And you can see some very interesting technique systems there, which is again why I decided to back off today and just go through very simple, some very simple ideation sketches. So, well, thank you again, Captain Nemo, and really take a look at the website, jim@drcontrast.com. Stay alive, and then hope all of you are doing very well. Now, I will end my streams with, and if you know somebody who's interested in developing some drawing skills, and if I can be of any help, just pass my word along about what I'm on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'd love to build my audience, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to be a part of it all. And then last but not least, I always end my streams by stating this because I believe it with all my heart. It's absolutely critical. And never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. We'll see you hopefully on Thursday. Take care of yourself and all the very best. And we'll maybe pick up on something like this. And if not, we'll just pick on something that really kind of hits and hums for us and gets the job done. Take care and all the very best. Thank you.